An ecosystem, or ecological system, consists of a community and all the physical aspects of its habitat, such as the soil, water, and weather. The physical aspects of a habitat are called abiotic factors, and the organisms in the habitat are called biotic factors. Ecology is the study of the interactions of living organisms with one another and with their physical environments, soil, water, climate, and so on. The many different species that live together in a habitat are called a community. To understand how the interactions of the parts can affect a whole system, think about how computers operate. Removing one circuit from a computer can change or limit the interactions of the computer's many components in ways that influence the computer's overall operation. In a similar way, removing one species from our environment can have many consequences, not all of them easily predictable. The variety of organisms, their genetic differences, and the communities and ecosystems in which they live in is termed biodiversity. Ecosystems and habitats can include many things: bears, chipmunks, rabbits, squirrels, pine trees, evergreen trees, all types of trees. Even the littlest things in the ecosystem is a part of it, such as billions of bacteria. The physical boundaries of an ecosystem are not always obvious, and they depend on how the ecosystem is being studied. For example, a scientist might consider a single rotten log on the forest floor to be an ecosystem if he or she is interested only in the fungi and the insects living in the log. Often, individual fields, forests, lakes, or study as isolated ecosystems. Of course, no location is ever totally isolated. Even oceanic islands get occasionally migrated visitors, such as birds blown off course. When a volcano forms a new island, a glacier recedes and exposes bare rock, or a fire burns all of the vegetation in an area. A new habitat is created. This change sets off a process of colonization and ecosystem development. The first organisms to live in a new habitat where soil is present tend to be small, fast-growing plants called pioneer species. They may make the ground more hospitable for other species. Later waves of plant immigrants may then outcompete and replace the pioneer species. A somewhat regular progression of species replacement is called succession. Succession that occurs where life has not existed before is called primary succession. Succession that occurs in areas where there has been previous growth, such as in abandoned fields or forest clearings, is called secondary succession. It was once thought that the stages of succession were predictable and that succession always led to the same final community of organisms within any particular ecosystem. Ecologists now recognize that initial conditions and chance plays a role in the process of succession. For example, if two species are in competition, a sudden change in the climate may favor the success of one species over the other. For this reason, no two successions are alike. A good example of primary succession is a receding glacier, because land is continually being exposed as the face of the glacier moves back. The rate at which organic material is produced by the photosynthetic organisms in an ecosystem is called primary productivity. Primary productivity determines the amount of energy available in the ecosystem. Organisms that first capture energy, the producers, include plants, some kinds of bacteria, and algae. Producers make energy storing molecules. All of the other organisms in the ecosystem are consumers. Consumers are those organisms that consume plants or other organisms to obtain the energy necessary to build their molecules. Ecologists study how energy moves through an ecosystem by assigning organisms in that ecosystem to a specific level called a trophic level. The path of energy through the trophic levels of an ecosystem is called a food chain. This is where you determine who is at the top of the food chain and who is at the bottom of the food chain, such as herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, detritivores, decomposers.